Why do borderlines prefer to be in long-term relationships with narcissists instead of you? She says, "You are nicer to me, but Hannibal tastes better." To which Hannibal replies, "She's slowly devouring me." If you have dated somebody who has borderline personality disorder, I am quite certain that you have heard about all of their exes. And you have heard about how their exes were these horrifically abusive narcissists. And in fact, they spend longer time in relationships with full-on, hardcore, grandiose, psychopathic narcissists instead of you. But they tell you that they want you. They want you, the nice guy, the guy who loves her, who meets her needs, who holds her hair back as she pukes, who takes care of her, who takes her back even after she's split on you and gone and spent the weekend with that abusive narcissist and then come back to you again, bloodied and asking for help. And you always take her back and you wonder why. And the worst pain is, after she has given you the final discard, if you don't know what the final discard is, I talk about it on this channel, look for it. After she's given you the final discard and completely gotten rid of you, and you are weeping in pain, knowing that she's with that narcissist, and she's been with him for years, she's marrying him and having kids with him. Why is she with him and not with you? We're going to talk about that in this video. This is Mike, and this is the one thing that heals BPD and NPD abuse. There is a cure for your pain. If you watch this channel, follow my suggestions, you can be completely free of your narcissistic abuse pain. I just came out with a book, How I Survived My Borderline Girlfriend, which you can find on Amazon Kindle, and it will be soon on Audible, audiobooks.thunderwizard.com. All right, so why is she with him? I picked these pictures specifically because this is how it looks, and there's some truth here. So I've picked the picture of Hannibal Lecter as he's tied up with the mask on, because that's really what happens when he's with a borderline. When a narcissist is with just a codependent, a non-disordered codependent victim, he is not, his mask is off and he is running around and he's free to do whatever he wants. But when he's with a borderline, she makes him think he's in control, but the truth is he actually ends up incapable of leaving her. Look, everybody's different. There's all different kinds of people, so this doesn't necessarily have to be the case every time. It was the case for me with my borderline ex. My borderline talked to me about the narcissistic boyfriends that she had. And she described one guy who was an absolute, total psychopathic NPD, and he used to torture her in all kinds of ways. I'm not going to get into all of it, but it used to just tear me apart listening to it, because she stayed with him a long time. And he was able to do things with her that I wasn't able to even connect with her on that level, and she wouldn't go those places with me, but she was happy to go those places with him. And the reason was because he was a narcissist. But in the end, she devoured him. And I realized that even though on the surface it looks as though for however many 1 or 2 years she was with the guy, that she was this codependent victim, the reality is that her covert psychopath was playing the long game. And what the borderline will do with the narcissist is the borderline will string the narcissist along, will be the perfect codependent doormat victim, will even give themselves all kinds of experiences so that they can actually justify their feelings of absolute victimization. Their feelings are real, and no doubt the narcissist is victimizing them. But the borderline is not only volunteering for it, but is encouraging it. So I'm going to share something with you that you may not know. Maybe you do, I don't know. I became aware during one of the discard sessions that I went through with my borderline girlfriend. I became aware that I found myself fantasizing about becoming a narcissist, becoming not getting NPD, but I fantasized about becoming an abusive, narcissistic person with no empath towards her. And I mentioned this to her once, and she said, I'd probably like that. And again, when I was discarded, I really started thinking about it, and I fantasized about it. I did not go through with it because I've been, doing a lot of things to, be a healthy, evolved person. And so I caught myself in that fantasy, and I said, Mike, you can't do that. You cannot be that person. And I also became aware that even if you tried to do that, that's not who you are. You don't have narcissistic personality disorder. This isn't who you are. You will never be a powerful enough narcissist to be able to beat her at this game. She will always win. Always, every time. What I didn't realize at the time was that it became clear to me later that she actually completely devoured and destroyed that narcissist. So the same thing that the borderline does to the typical codependent, the non-disordered codependent, the borderline will do to the narcissist. And the narcissist is actually their preferred prey. And so what ends up happening with what the borderline does that doesn't work with you, but works with the narcissist, is that they become absolutely indispensable to the narcissist. They try to become indispensable to you, but what you end up trying to do is your goal is to meet her infantile need for love and security. And then your hope is by giving her that, she will then start to come out of her narcissistic mindset and start to become more rational and start to allow herself the love that she wants, which you think. I talk about this specifically in my book, How I Survived My Borderline Girlfriend. You're wrong about what you think is happening. You think that she wants you to love her. The more that you love her, the more that she's beginning to warm to you, and she will eventually surrender to her love and bond with you. And that is the exact opposite of what is going on. I talk about it in the book. But that is your agenda. That is, and it makes sense because that works with non-disordered people. If you meet somebody who's got a lot of emotions, a lot of issues, maybe they've got some fear of commitment, and they do some kind of borderline things where they might break up with you, but then they come back to you. Those people actually want to be convinced that they will be safe and that you will love them. And then by convincing them and showing them that you are safe, they then do open themselves up, commit to you, and stay with you and love you back. It works with people who don't have a narcissistic personality disorder. It does not work with people that have NPD. It does the exact opposite. In fact, you are guaranteeing that by giving them what they want, you are actually guaranteeing that they will discard you permanently. Unless, of course, they've been in therapy for 10 years, and that's a whole other subject. All right, so what happens between the borderline and the narcissist? So the narcissist has no empathy, right? If we're talking about somebody that has NPD, the narcissist has no empathy. If the narcissist has no empathy and is also psychopathic, this works out really good for the borderline, because the borderline, where they came from is they came from a place where at the very least they were neglected, which means they were not given any love or enough attention, which created this starving infant, starving for love. Now, what we all do when we're infants is, however our parents treat us, whether they treat us well or whether they're abusive to us, whether they neglect us, whatever it is that they do, we become entrained to believe that that behavior equals love. And as I've talked about before, the most powerful self-preservation instinct we have is to survive. And the most important thing to our survival is not shelter, is not food, is not clothing. It is love and acceptance. And whatever it is we think we need to do to get love and acceptance, that gets entrained into us, and that's what we take into life. So all of your if you're psychotic, all of your psychosis, all of your neurosis is based on your false understanding of what love is. This is why we have, dysfunctional relationships. People have the wrong idea of what love is, and they look for that. So the borderline believes that they don't deserve to be loved. The closest understanding of love that they have, which makes them crazy with love, is when they are ignored. That turns them on more than anything else in the world. Being ignored or even being shunned, being abused. They like being abused because they're getting attention. They're getting attention, which gives them this negative, of course, it doesn't feel good to be abused, and that negative feeling they confuse with love. It's not that they're having a good time. They're not having a good time, but they're trying to survive. And they have a very warped, very incorrect understanding of what love is. And so when they experience somebody who targets them and then proceeds to ignore them, use them, objectify them, confuse them, abuse them, hoover them, they are in their heaven, because to them that feels exactly like mommy and daddy's love. So if the narcissist is completely emotionally unavailable, this is the biggest turn on of all for them, because that's what mommy and daddy were like. So their goal is to replay what happened to them as infants, and this time make it right. This is, by the way, your goal too. When you seek out any dysfunctional relationship, you're trying to relive the dysfunction you experienced, and this time you're going to fix it. It never works, but this is the strategy. So this is their strategy. And this is why they love being with the narcissist. They love it because now they have a chance to finally get mommy and daddy to love them. So the way that they do that is they meet the abusive demands. They allow themselves to become infantilized. They allow themselves to become objectified. They allow themselves to simply get into a contractual agreement where their worth is based on what they do, not who they are. It's perfect for them. And they get to continue to do that because the narcissist's game, which he tries to play with the borderline, which will ultimately fail, the game that the narcissist is playing is, no, this is exactly what I want. I want to break you down until you want only to serve my narcissistic, godlike needs. I'm going to abuse you. I'm going to string you along. And they play their game. The borderline plays right along. She knows exactly how to do it. She's not lying. It is painful. She is in all kinds of horrific pain and all of that, but you can't break her, because you and I, we can get broken. We've had whatever dysfunction we've had, but when we get to that point, it can break us, which is what the psychopathic narcissist wants. But you can't break a borderline. A borderline is as close to dying from lack of love as is possible in a physical body. So you can't break them. So as the narcissist, long game is to continuously abuse, pull in, love bomb, destroy, abuse. They're hoping they can completely break you, and then they're going to feast on your entrails. But what they don't understand is that they are with a covert psychopath. And the covert psychopath is much more cunning and much more powerful. When it comes, this is where the narcissist has met his match. And eventually what will happen is that the borderline will make themselves so indispensable to the narcissist's fantasy and the narcissist's supply chain. They will make themselves so indispensable that the narcissist will break his one rule, which is never truly reveal his feelings to anybody. Never truly reveal his vulnerabilities to anybody. But the narcissist will do it for the borderline. The borderline meets the narcissist's supply so perfectly, so much better than that regular, just codependent, the chronic, non-disordered codependent. That's a tasty meal, but that one is not nearly as tasty as the borderline. Borderline, you can get into the marrow, suck the marrow out of her bones, and she'll still come back for more. So he becomes addicted to that. But then the borderline starts to when she starts to finally get from him what she wants, she now plays out her psychopathic revenge against her parents. And she is going to draw him further and further into her trap, which is why I have the narcissist here. He's all tied up and got a mask on, because that's what's really going on between him and the narcissist, between him and the borderline. And eventually, what will happen is, in order to save the relationship, because she will start to give off more power than he realizes, and he will then become the child and she will become the psychopath. And then he will become forced to reveal his inner vulnerability. He will be forced to reveal that he really does need her, that he can't live without her. And when she gets that, she will feast on that and she will terminally discard him. He will be left a lifeless lump of nothing. I enjoyed talking with my borderline and finding out, because I've been around long enough to know some of this stuff, and I said to her, you destroyed him. He wasn't the abuser, you were. You destroyed him. So this is what's happening. This is why when your borderline leaves you and she hooks up with the narcissist and you hear about all of the abuse that she's suffering, which is very real, you feel, why is she with him? Why is she letting him do all this to her when I love her? She's in so much pain. I hear, because she calls me every couple of weeks and comes over and spends the weekend and then goes back to him. And I can't let her understand that I'm the one that truly loves her. Well, she's not interested in that. She's interested in this battle of who's going to feast on whom the most. And, eventually she will ultimately discard him. And then she might come back to you if she hasn't completely feasted on you. If you understand this about the borderline, the covert psychopath, if you understand this, then hopefully you'll understand that there's no hope. You're never going to have what you want. She's only going to destroy you. She's only going to hurt you. Unless, of course, she's been in therapy for 10 years. And then in that case, here's the sad part. She's not going to want to be with you, because if she's been in therapy, she's going to realize you're a codependent and you're bad news to her. So if you want to learn the one thing you can do so you can stop thinking about her years later, she's with that narcissist, or why does she in love with him but she doesn't love me? Why I treat her? If you're still in that, you're still in the intermittent reinforcement trauma bond loop that you'll never get out of that unless it's broken. And the only way to break that, you can't even do it with therapy. Therapy alone won't do it. There's only one thing that can do it. I teach you how to do it on this channel, and I talk about it in my book, How I Survived My Borderline Girlfriend. So get the book, watch the videos on this channel. If you follow my suggestions, I guarantee you complete healing from the pain of the relationship. You'll still have to be a human, but I guarantee you complete healing from the pain of that relationship. All right, that's it, my friends. So never again wish that you were a narcissist, because you'll end up being devoured worse than ever.